These helicopters were amongst the first rotary aircraft tested by the US military forces, in a time when the manufacturers still tried different solutions to build their helicopters. Their unique design made them easily recognizable, but early faults and mechanical problems in the end prevented these helicopters to enter service. These were the Kellett XR-8 and XR-10 designs, the so-called egg beaters. So let's see the history of these helicopters today. The concept of the helicopter is as old as the concept of flying. Many experimented with it since the beginning of the century, and between the two world wars, the engineers tried several different designs. At that time, it was not clear yet if the helicopter or the autogyro will be the better approach. The Kellett autogyro company was betting on the latter, and developed several different types during the 1930s. Their KD-1 design was bought by the US Army in 1935 for evaluation, and was tested under the designation YG-1. Later, the prototypes were redesignated as XR-2 and XR-3. These autogyros seemed perfect for the observation role, with their near-vertical takeoff and slow speeds. Though the test flights continued on the type until 1943, leading to the XO-60 military type, but by that time, the advances in helicopter design made the autogyro concept obsolete. The Kellett company already realized this years before, as by 1939 the Sikorsky VS-300 helicopter appeared, the first design to use a single engine to drive the main rotor and the rotor on the tail as well. So Kellett, after more than a decade of building autogyros, now concentrated their efforts to the helicopter development, and in November 1942 they proposed a new twin-rotor helicopter design to the Army Air Force. They opted for a different approach than Sikorsky, and their design used two counter-rotating intermeshing rotors, eliminating the need for a separate rotor on the tail. A similar design was developed in Germany, the Flettner FL-282 Colibri, which used the same intermeshing rotor concept, and was actually used operationally by the Luftwaffe during World War II. I already have a video covering that type, so if you're interested in its history, check it out. The Army initially dismissed the Kellett design as being too complicated, but soon the decision was reversed and the proposal was accepted in January 1943. In September the same year, a $1 million contract was awarded to them to build two prototypes. Apart from the intermeshing rotor concept, the helicopter's fuselage was unusual as well, being a short egg shape. Though it looked unusual, it used conventional building methods, fabric covering over a steel tube frame, and featured a two-man glazed cockpit. The first prototype was ready at the summer of 1944 and made its maiden flight in August. The first test flights were successful, but it was discovered the helicopter lacked directional stability. So two vertical tail fins were added, which fixed this problem. But the type had trouble with its intermeshing rotor system as well. After a month, it was discovered the rotor blades from the two rotors are sometimes touching during flight. So the Air Force ordered Kellett to develop a separate rigid rotor system to fix this problem. The second prototype started its test flights in March 1945, and this type featured two-bladed rotors, unlike the first model that had a three-bladed design. But the new variant caused severe vibrations, and its performance was way below the expectations, so it was dropped. The development of the new rigid rotor system, designed for the first prototype, was soon also cancelled, as it turned out the implementation would require the extensive redesign of the whole drivetrain. In the end, the XR-8 was sent to service trials with its original rotor system in early 1946. But since the Sikorsky R-4 helicopters at this time were in service for more than 2 years, and even the newer R-5 and R-6 models entered service, it was soon decided the Kellett design is not worth the time and effort anymore. The program was cancelled and the prototypes were handed over to the National Air Museum. But that was not the end of Kellett's intermeshing rotor design. Already in 1945, a bigger version of the XR-8 was on the drawing board. This new variant, the XR-10, was the company's answer to an Air Force request for a helicopter which should be able to carry at least 10 passengers or similar cargo weight. The XR-10 followed the design principles of the earlier model, but it was much larger and stronger. While the XR-8 was 22 feet 7 inches long, with two 36 feet diameter rotors, an empty weight of 2,320 pounds, and a maximum takeoff weight of 2,975 pounds, and it was powered by just one 6-cylinder engine developing 245 horsepower. The bigger XR-10 was 28 feet 8 inches long, with two 65 feet diameter rotors, an empty weight of 9,570 pounds, and a maximum takeoff weight of 15,410 pounds. And it was powered by two 15-cylinder Continental engines, each of them developing 525 horsepower. The new design was the biggest and most powerful helicopter when it appeared, able to carry 10 fully equipped troops or 4,000 pounds of cargo, and reach 120 miles an hour speed in horizontal flight. But maybe its best feature was that it could fly on just one engine with normal gross weight, at altitudes up to 4,600 feet. The helicopter's two engines were mounted on outside nacelles, so the whole interior of the airframe could be used for cargo space, and the engines drove the rotors through long drive shafts. The XR-10 made its maiden flight in April 1947, and though it proved itself of being a very versatile and capable aircraft, the same problems were noticed with the rotor system as on its predecessor. This time the company managed to fix the problems. The test flights were deemed successful, and the helicopter was delivered to Wright Field in June 1948. The testing continued there until October 1949, when the prototype crashed due to a control failure. Despite the crash, the Air Force planned to order 10 of these helicopters for further testing, and finally it seemed the Kellett egg beaters might enter service. But sadly for the type, the budget of the Air Force was reduced by the Congress in that year, and the Kellett XR-10 became one of the victims of the budget cuts. The company even planned a 16-seat civilian version, but sadly because of the termination of the project, this never made it further than the mock-up stage. Only 2 units were built from the XR-8 design, and 2 from the XR-10, which were tested by the military. But sadly, technical problems and the budget cuts prevented these interesting helicopters to enter mass production. One of the surviving XR-8 models is under restoration at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. If you're interested in more early helicopter designs from World War II, I already have a few videos on the channel. Check them out. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and in the comments let me know if there's any interesting events or vehicles you'd like to see.